Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about a fascinating new concept. Actually, a model I believe we should immediately implement in Dungeons and Dragons that has to do with dungeon masters and with dungeon mastering. So let's jump in here. So first of all, we're in a really special year right now, and it is a celebration of the 50th year of Dungeons and Dragons, and it's very real. Like, Time Magazine did an article on like Dungeons and Dragons being 50 years old, and it is a devastating year for every OSR and every indie game. They really can't get any shine on any of their products. They have a tough time selling product in a regular year, and this year, like, all the oxygen in the room has been sucked out of the room by Dungeons and Dragons, and Dungeons and Dragons is just queen of the ball this year. And OSR and Indie are having an even rougher time than they normally have, and this is particularly bad for OSR and Indie because they had a brutal 2023. Right, 2023 was this year where, like, every single month, Dungeons and Dragons had a absolutely massive scandal, right? And the OGL and the indie were like just doing a jig every month. They were like, oh my gosh, with all these scandals, D&D is crushed, right? And we're gonna eat their lunch this year. And it was the exact opposite. Everyone was like, hey, your jank little ridiculous OSR indie game, completely scandal free. We will take this scandal filled D&D over any of your nonsense. And it was brutal. It was absolutely savage for OSR and indie creators, and this year is even worse. It is astonishing. I really believe the OSR and the indie don't even function as an industry anymore. It's better to think of them as an activity sphere. It's really incredible. All right, with D&D, it's the exact opposite. This year, not only are we celebrating 50 years, 5 decades of Dungeons and Dragons, but the coolest among us, including me, are talking about the next 50 years, right? And saying, now is the time to determine how we do the next 50 year. And so how do we do the next 50 years of Dungeons and Dragons? Dead mastering. What is dead mastering and how is it done? Actually, you know what? I'm not even going to say how it's done. I'm just going to define it in this video. What is dead mastering? Dead mastering is a live dungeon mastering using the style of a dead dungeon master. You're like, what? Okay, so let me explain it to you in regular terms that any muggle could understand. All right, so because this is complicated. Everything I talk about here is freighted. Like, I use the term dead mastering. It's freighted. Like, you're gonna have to unpack this with a crowbar, right? And there's going to be a lot in the box. All right, here we go. All right, dead mastering. So right now, Michael Crichton, he is dead. He's been dead for like 5-10 years, right? He's dead. Okay. He just published a novel. The novel is Eruption. Okay. Now on the title it says James Patterson and Michael Crichton, right? And James Patterson has now, I don't like James Patterson's work. I don't think he's a great author. I've listened to quite a few, probably listened to 3 or 4 books. I'm like, this guy's not for me. I'm just gonna move on. I don't really care about James Patterson's stuff, right? Hey, people who do, I just don't like James Patterson, right? But I was like, wait a second, Eruption by Michael Crichton. I ain't never read that, right? And so I read the book. It was phenomenal. Eruption is a volcano eruption in Hawaii in Michael Crichton style, right? So Jurassic Park, right? It's dinosaurs, super awesome and like exciting. And Michael Crichton stories, Twisters, was written by Michael Crichton, right? Like, Michael Crichton is like, let's take this regular thing and make it epic, right? And he did, right? So James Patterson comes in and is like, okay, Crichton's dead, but I'm gonna dead author him, right? I'm going to write in his style. So James Patterson did the work, and he really, fought very hard, and he mastered the style of Michael Crichton, and he delivered a Michael Crichton novel. And it is more Michael Crichton-y than Jurassic Park, right? Than Mainframe or any of his, Eaters of the Dead, any of these, right? Like, he is really phenomenal. It's a good Michael Crichton book. Dead mastering is you recognize, okay, hey, this crusty grognard, he can't really dungeon master today, and the reason why is his prejudice and his hatred is so high that uh, that you can't put him in front of any millennials or anybody who is progressive in any way. But back in the day, in the 80s and the 90s, this guy knew everything about dungeon mastering, and he used to be a good dungeon master. So if I spend time studying his notes, studying his collection of books, studying and then asking his players what he did, I can dead master him. I can use his style and do dungeon mastering the way this dead dungeon master used to dungeon master. And why would I do this? Because he's better than me. There's a ton of them. This is I'm fascinated with grognards because I feel like they're somebody that people should have access to, but they don't have access to because like this cancerous hatred and prejudice grows in people when they grow old. This does happen. It's definitely a thing. Like go check out half the SNL skits, right? And you could see it too. Like just people like it's just bad. It's really bad, right? But this dead mastering is important because we can bring the dungeon master back even though they're dead and deliver dungeon mastering completely in their style, actually better. I would say that Eruption is the best Michael Crichton novel ever written, without exception, right? So we can take the dungeon mastering style of these grognards, extract all the suck, and just deliver the best, right? That's valuable, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard was my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider like and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.